Hello, welcome to the next episode of Two Girls Talk Transits. Today we're reviewing the astrology from August 3rd through August 9th, 2025, and we're your host. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Kaylee.
Welcome back. We're coming off of Venus being fresh in Cancer and the Sun Mercury conjunction that was all last week. And this week we get to welcome Mars entering into Libra on August 6th, which is Wednesday, so a little bit later in the week. It's kind
Mhm.
of quieter building up, but at the end of the day on the 6th, Mars enters into Libra, and this is definitely one of the weeks to put on your calendar to kind of notice because it will really start to activate the opposition to Saturn. And the main key point here is that both of our malefics are in signs of which they are not well resourced and they are
Mhm.
not in a place to be strong. And so one of the things that I was thinking a lot about this was like how it means that a lot of the negative energy is going to go off script, like how things are not going to play by the rules. Mars really likes to go to battle in a way that's forefront, aggressive, loud, charging forward, and being active, like being very in your face about things. Someone who has a lot of power and a lot of energy, and that's how they make change. So in Libra, the energy of Mars, though, has to be more people pleasing. It has to be
Mhm.
more aware of like the energy around it. And so it still wants to fight and be aggressive and change and cut away and sever from things. But it has to do so in a way that is one more of an air energy, so with words, and also more passive and aggressive, like passive aggressive, and more societally pleasing. So, like gossiping or like spreading rumors or like things like that is how Mars will have to start acting out in Libra. And like we already see this with Saturn in Aries. It's like Saturn not following the traditional government rules of checks and
Mhm.
balances. We already see Saturn. And so we're going to see that with Mars now. And I just don't think it's going to be a positive feeling. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I feel like it's like asking your Aries friend to be like more polite and like, kind of like pay attention to people's feelings a little bit more. And it's just not their energy. Like their energy is very direct and like forthcoming and honest. And, Libra is kind of the one that does those like societal dances and like weaves in and out of like pleasing people in order to get what it wants. So yeah, we definitely will have that like I don't know, stress point where it's like we have to like in order to get what we want, we kind of have to be a little bit, I don't want to say inauthentic, but like we just have to
No,
play the
I think
game,
that's a
the
good word.
game. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we have to play the game. Because I think this opposition, especially, is kind of reaching like a boiling point where it's like, Mars and Leo, Mars and Virgo was trying to fight against Saturn, but like Saturn's not playing by the rules. So then, like, we can't play by the rules either. It's like
Mhm.
what you want, then you need to like infiltrate the society and the social groups and like destroy it from the inside out, like Gossip Girl level scheming or something, instead of like just going into a argument or fight with somebody.
Yeah, yeah, right. It'll be interesting then when like Mars moves into Scorpio and see how like that story plays out a little bit further because that's like, Mars is at home in Scorpio and it's a little bit more conniving and like
Yeah.
malefic for a purpose. But anyways, I think too this might like bring to light like what's happening in our like governing bodies too. Like you said, like we have Saturn not really playing by the rules, but then we might realize like what's actually happening and how people are actually taking action. And it has more to do with like relationships at the top than it has to do with like protecting the rules or like following by
Mhm.
those rules. So I think we're seeing a little bit of like networking gone haywire. And I think, that's very much kind of been like Trump's like his message is like he can make a deal with anybody, right? Like he
Right.
thinks that he's like super good at like social stuff. So we could definitely see some of that playing out. Like these like social aspects coming into play. Yeah, and I think on a personal level, we're gonna feel like it's more important maybe to do those like networking tasks or to like, see who we can get to know to get what we want.
Yeah, it is. It is very much like you aren't able to do this alone kind of thing. You
Hmm.
need a kind of group or a partner, or just like you have to kind of rally support differently than what you would otherwise do. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting how it's going to be like it's just not our general malefic energy, but one that's still going to be very, just chaotic, I guess. That's just a little bit unique.
Yeah, Mars has to like sacrifice the independence in this setting.
Yeah,
So,
it does. That's why it doesn't
yeah.
like it to be here because it has to be
Mm.
thinking of somebody else.
Yeah, yeah. So on a personal level too, I think we might be asked to like, hey, we have to consider other people and our decisions and our actions at this time, where in the past we might have like been able to rely on, this is what I want, this is what direction I'm going in, especially as like an individualist culture we live in, we're very like self-minded. It might be like more important just as Mars is in Libra, to be more conscious of the other and like taking action with other people in mind, even though it's not going to feel great because, Mars is there in Libra, not like loving being there.
Right. I will say one thing too is that like I think a question people kind of get is like when the malefics or when any planet is like in its place of like detriment or fall, like does that mean that it's like less harmful? And that's no, it's actually that it's more harmful. Like you
Hmm.
want a Mars and Saturn in their place that they rule because that is like conducive to the energy. Like it's conducive for Mars to be in Aries because that's where you fight for things and it's like helpful and it's channeled correctly. So when they're in places that they don't have resources, they have to just kind of take resources from wherever they get it.
Hmm.
And it actually ends up harming more because it's not a comfortable place. Like you're putting a warrior in a really fancy mansion with a bunch of people socializing and drinking and dancing. And, he's like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
I I heard this like this thing where you can like look at the planets as like actors in a play. So that's like a really good analogy to like,
Right.
like a warrior in like a ballroom or something.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
And so, he's going to stumble around. He's going to knock over tables. He's actually going to be
Hmm.
more of a problem than if he was in a battlefield or, wherever Aries, a really fiery house or something. Like he's going to be an issue here.
Yeah.
So he's going to
It's
like mess up or like say the wrong thing or be too aggressive or, like destroy something. Like it's just like it's uncomfortable energy. And that's what we really mean, like going off script is like an area of your chart, usually the Libra area of your chart is a place where there's just more flow, more relationships, more socializing, and then now it's all of a sudden like getting weirdly aggressive.
right, right, because it's being ruled by Venus, and
Right.
that's like not like Mars and Venus are, the masculine and the feminine, they're like opposite energies. So,
Yeah.
um, it's interesting. It's like, at this point, the king is under the domain of the queen, it's like,
Right.
we're having to answer to the feminine, and that's not comfortable at times, apparently. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's all
Um,
I have to say about that, I think, right now.
yeah, it'll spend a good deal of time here.
Right.
So we've got the next couple weeks to look forward to with Mars and Libra. Um, but yeah, check out what house it's in your chart and, see how it's going to play out. Yeah. So moving forward on the next day, actually, so this will be on the 8th, so in 2 days. We have two aspects being made to that Mars. So we have this Mars in Libra making a trine to Uranus and Gemini.
Mhm.
And we also have it going opposite Saturn in Aries. And
Ugh. Yeah.
it's looking like Neptune is at the same degree, but I think that transit
Yeah.
goes exact the next day.
it does, but I mean, we might as well include
Yeah.
it because I was thinking about this. I was like, I don't think we can really isolate transits in this discussion.
Yeah, with that like
Um,
mashup of Saturn and Neptune. Yeah.
right. And even Uranus in a sextile with Saturn and Neptune, like they're all interaction.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
we kind of have to look at them all together.
Yeah, we really do. I mean, we're having like major conversation with all these outer planets, and when there's like a big conversation going on with outer planets, it's kind of like I feel for some reason I feel like outer planets are more like fated things. Like it's like things that
Yeah.
we cannot control. Like inner planets are like kind of, we have dominion over them in some way. Like it speaks to like our personal levels of control. And then when outer planets come in, they kind of like set the tone in a way that we can't really like mold the energy. It's more so like we enter this room and the energy is already there and it's for us to kind of move through, but not really to mold. It's more of like an observational energy. So yeah, when Mars makes this sextile to Uranus, there's like some kind of like change maybe that you're desiring to make, but then opposition to Saturn is like, that restriction being put on there, and then Neptune is that confusion. So and Mars is in this like debilitated, position. So we're just kind of at this point, I think, struggling with desires of actions and like how to implement those actions, how to carry things forward in a way that is somehow peaceful. Yeah. What do you think, Maddie?
So I was thinking like Libra is a cardinal sign, and the last time that Mars was in a cardinal sign was when it was retrograde in Cancer.
Okay.
And the fact that it's just returning to a cardinal sign, like I think on one hand, Mars is really gonna want to like really start something or initiate an
Mm-hmm.
action,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like, and I do think Uranus and Gemini with trining it is conducive to that. So like this is technically the first aspect Mars will make. So it's like entering into this sign like, all right, I want to start something, I want to restart something, I want to change something. And Uranus is like, yes, 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 like here's all the ideas, like here's all the like here's all the things that we can do. And like they're working well together. But at the same time, then Mars is like really feeling that energy. It does immediately run into Saturn. So there's like having to make a change in the midst of like really big restrictions or really big confinement of your energy or like being
Mm-hmm.
constantly limited, but you still feel like I have to make some shift, I have to make some change or adjustment in my life because if that feels really important, but you're doing so with the Saturnian energy like staring across you saying no.
Yeah,
And
like
so, yeah, it's like this real big push pull. Like, I feel like on one hand, it's going to feel kind of exciting, but then you're like immediately doused with cold water of like,
mm-hmm.
no, how possible that dream is?
Yeah, yeah, like it's this far in the distance, or like these are all the things you have to do first. Like I can see this like playing out in my own chart. So I think that might be like a good example of how like the energy is working and
Yeah.
how we might see it come up. So I have Uranus in the second, Mars would be in the sixth at this point, and then Saturn, Neptune in my 12th. So I know already that I need to make like some kind of career change. It just came up this week that there was like some kind of money thing with my job. So I think this will be like me wanting to make a change in relation to like making more money or shifting the way that I make money. But then opposite Saturn in the 12th ruling my career, I'm not finished with school yet. So I like don't have my degree yet to be able to like rely on that for like job purposes. You have to like get your licensure to be able to work. So I think that that would be like that Saturnian element, that like blockage that comes through. It's like, oh, you want to do this and you're prompted to do this. Like you said, Uranus is coming in like prompting you, but oh, there's like a big blockage. So what are you going to do instead? We got to like work with the energy. It might not be like you have the full picture planned out yet, but you can take steps and do like, what you can with what you have, basically. It's like figuring out like, okay, maybe I'm not at the top of the mountain yet, but how can I at least do like 20%, like at least make
Yeah.
the first moves, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Like, because I mean, Mars is gonna have to move forward, and so it just has to figure out how to do so in the constraints. And then this goes back to the fact that both of the planets are in positions of fallen and detriment, where they have to be creative. So Mars
Hmm.
can't just go into the ballroom and be like waving its sword around, like, let's cut this away, let's change this. Instead, has to like go into a group of people and like talk to them nicely and get to know
Hmm.
them and then like make changes through the relationships, so like you basically in your own life will just have to see how you can bend the rules essentially and like get creative within the rules so that you can move forward. And I think that's the best way to work with these malefics is to be like, you can't actually do how you're used to doing this energy, especially if you have malefics in like either neutral or good placements. You're used to that. If you already have malefics in like, detriment and fall, then you're also used to not playing by the rules. And then this may be a little bit easier for you. So like
Yeah.
that's what I think, how to work with this energy is you have to get more creative about it.
Yeah, I would kind of think so too. I think, if you're not playing, like if you're trying to play by the rules, you might notice that other people who aren't playing by the rules are getting ahead. And you
Yep.
might be like, God, like, why are they getting ahead when I'm trying to
Right.
play by the rules, you know? And it's
And it's
just
like,
not the time for role playing, you know?
no, the rules are out the window with Saturn and Aries. There are no
Hmm.
rules. You need to just figure that out now, you
Yeah,
know?
like learn how to navigate that, which can be really hard for like, we were taught like ever since we were like young children, like follow the rules, like do this right, do that right. And we literally get punished if we don't
Yeah.
follow the rules. So there's all of that like reinforcement of like you break the rules, you're in trouble. So we're having to like collectively overcome that in some way. It's okay. So, yeah, we're trying to like collectively overcome like, maybe I'm not bad or wrong or, if I break the rules, like maybe it's okay and it's actually going to get me further.
Yeah, it is. It is like we really do have to kind of embrace like I kind of feel like this is Uranus and Gemini too. It's just like all
Hmm.
the ideas and stuff. Like we have to embrace more creativity with like socializing and with their environment. And that kind of relates to the fact that Uranus is sextiling Neptune and Saturn, like the best way to move through these like structures or the lack of rules is to really disrupt them anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I just think that's kind of the energy. I mean, like collectively it's gonna be tense. But I wouldn't expect it to be like traditional Mars Saturn oppositions where it's like, big explosions or stuff, but more things like boycotting or social campaigns or like things, they're a little bit different in terms of like standing up to authority or like hopefully more community support and so, but like something like that.
Yeah, I could see like Mars and Libra like wanting to fight for like, human welfare, like, like community-based things, like fighting for communities, which I think will be like illustrated a lot with like the Gaza stuff, you know.
Right. Like, and maybe things will start to shift, but uh, it's tough. This is definitely like a tough aspect this week. And the
Okay.
little cherry on top of you, or anything else you want to say about this? Or
No,
go.
no. Yeah.
I mean, happening alongside all of this is our full moon in Aquarius on the 9th as well, but really early on Saturday. So you'll be feeling it the Friday, the same day as the Mars Saturn opposition. Like you'll definitely be loud, but we have this full moon at 16 degrees of Aquarius. The full moon itself is not necessarily interacting with anything. This means that it also doesn't have any support from Venus and Jupiter,
Hmm.
but it's ruled by Saturn, who is technically being harmed or afflicted by Mars at this moment. So I just
Yeah.
think the full moon is really going to highlight the Mars Saturn opposition and perhaps pull some of the Saturnian significations more focus onto the Aquarius house instead of maybe the Capricorn house at this moment. Like just because the full moon is there.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's kind of like wherever you are trying to take action and wherever you're feeling restricted, like the full moon is going to kind of highlight perhaps what you need to start to clear away to actually move your actions forward. Like if Saturn is the thing that's blocking Mars right now, the full moon is kind of highlighting maybe why Saturn is blocking it. Maybe there's a reason for it. Like you have to go through the steps in your career to gain a good career. Like you have to have a degree, or something like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
But the full moon can really be highlighting the limitation. I think that's sitting with Mars, and then maybe a decision that you have to make around either releasing it or just like accepting it.
Right, right. Yeah, because I mean, full moons are like full illumination, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
really like making things very visible and clear in ways that like the moon usually isn't. The moon's usually like a bit precluded. How do you say? Like, yeah, I don't know if that's the word.
Secluded.
I don't know what the right word is. Like shadowed, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, we're definitely getting like more information here about that like area of life, and I think it'll be definitely interesting because we haven't had a lot of planets in that area, like highlighting any, Aquarian or even Capricorn ruled, like those Saturnian ruled houses. Um, so there is a little bit of conversation coming in about that where you might maybe have been like looking at your transits and you're like, oh, I don't see any like planets moving up there. I guess nothing's going on with like that area of my chart. But this like definitely ropes that into the story, that Aquarian house. Um, you can definitely get a broader picture of what's going on. And, I think this always happens, but the more we talk about this, like, I feel like whenever we have our podcast, like the week prior, like, always makes more sense because I'm like, oh,
Right.
that's like the buildup of energy that's happening. Um, do you also like feel that? Does it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like, because when we're talking about it, it's theoretical and like there's all these possibilities. But then, like, when we actually see what chooses to play out, then you can make more informed decisions. Like, that's why, like, whenever I do like predictive readings, like the further out I go in like the year ahead or so, like I get more vague and they're like, like why? But it's like we need to know what happens first, and then
Yeah,
that
it's more
determines the
abstract. Yeah.
yeah, it gets more because that we don't know what is actually initiating. Um, but yeah, no, it is interesting looking at this Aquarius house, like the Saturn piece, and like, okay, so that's how these two are tying together. And yeah, I mean, Mercury retrograde will be a big play with the Aquarius house a bit next week when Mercury stations direct, but I think that will just continue whatever the full moon starts this week.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have had those oppositions to Pluto, so we have had like some
Okay.
conversation with that um, Aquarius house, but I think this will be like a little bit louder.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't like this week overall. Like, it's an uncomfortable full moon. It's an uncomfortable position for these two malefics. Like, we do have a beautiful Venus Jupiter
I was
conjunction
gonna say,
happening.
we're working up to that. Like this week may seem like a little bit dreadful, but like in 2 days, like,
Yeah.
following, we have a pretty nice conjunction coming up that's gonna really brighten things. So I think it is kind of a little bit of like the dark before the dawn, or
Yeah.
however that's said. Yeah.
Yeah, things are getting like very dark, and then like you come together in some fashion, and like it's more healing. Like, yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's Saturn in general. Like Saturn is very, dark and
right.
yeah. So, anyways.
So yeah, I would just look to, just think about a little bit what's kind of coming up with you in the Aries Libra axis, and then maybe notice how that's kind of being tied into this full moon and
Hmm.
just the challenges Saturn's facing, and then maybe the full moon is highlighting for you what the exact challenge is and what may need to be kind of integrated or let go of. And that's the best way to work for it. And then, just collectively just be mindful. what is happening in the world and
Yeah.
if you choose to get involved in it or not, you know.
Yeah, it's always the question.
All right. If you want more content from us, you follow us on TikTok or Instagram and YouTube at Two Girls Talk Transits, and we will see you next week.
See you.